In this brief video, we're going to look at an excerpt from the Kuzari, one of the most important works in medieval Jewish philosophy, written by Judah Halevi or Yehuda Halevi, who was born in Muslim-ruled Spain, known as Andalusia, in around 1075. Now, he spent much of his life caught between Muslim and Christian conquests of Spain. So he wrote this book in part as a defense of poor little Judaism, which seemed to be playing a very minor role on the world scene compared to these other two all-conquering religions. If you look at the very first quote from the book, Halevi says, "I was asked to state what arguments and replies I could bring to bear against the attacks of philosophers and followers of other religions, and also against Jewish sectarians who attacked the rest of Israel." So this is, as the subtitle says, an argument for the faith of Israel, a kind of defense almost of Judaism. Now, the work is unique among the works we'll be looking at, since it doesn't really follow any particular philosophical school of the time. The thinkers we'll be looking at generally follow one of the schools of philosophy or theology prevalent at the time, and we'll be finding out a little more about all of those next week. But Halevi is on the whole very critical of those schools, so his book is a kind of almost anti-philosophy. It isn't anti-philosophical. He uses the tools of philosophy all the time, but he doesn't really toe any party lines. He is very much his own man. Now, the book itself, which was written in Arabic, is a dialogue in which the king of a people called the Khazars has a recurring dream. If you look here, you will see that Halevi says he had once heard the arguments of a rabbi who sojourned with the king of the Khazars. To him came a dream, and it appeared as if an angel addressed him, saying, "Thy way of thinking is indeed pleasing to the Creator, but not thy way of acting." Basically, this king of the Khazars has a recurring dream in which an angel appears and tells him that while his heart's in the right place, his intentions are good, he is after all a high priest of the Khazar religion, his acts are not. So this prompts the king to try and find the right form of religious action. So what he does, and what the Kuzari includes, is an interview with first a philosopher, then a Christian, then a Muslim, and finally a Jew. No, this is not the beginning of a bad joke. And he asks them each about their religious views. And what you have here in this PDF is the initial response of the philosopher. Now I'm going to ruin the ending for you. The king dismisses the first three options within a few pages of part one and spends the rest of the 5-part work talking to the Jew. By the end of book one, he's actually converted himself and his nation to Judaism. As you can again see here, the latter, as we know from historical records, became a convert to Judaism about 400 years ago. By the way, there are many who think this is based on an actual historical event. Obviously, the Kuzari itself is a fictional reconstruction, but there are many who believe that there was, well, there certainly was a place called Khazaria, and there are those who think that a mass conversion did take place there. For those interested, plug in Khazars of Kuzari into a Google search and you'll find out more. Anyway, back to our philosopher. When asked by the king for his views, he answers with a lengthy presentation of his philosophical views. Now, these views are a version of the philosophy of the great Greek philosopher Aristotle, whose works, or at least some of them, had been translated into Arabic by his Muslim admirers. This is not pure Aristotle at all. It's Aristotle with a religious flavor, as transmitted by the Muslim philosophers of the day, known as falasifa. And what you should do is read through this and do your best to answer the questions that follow. Some of it's quite difficult, but don't worry too much about the technicalities. Basically, the opening paragraph here, which begins over here with "the philosopher replied," here on page 36. This opening paragraph is about God. It's a God that doesn't seem much like the God of the Torah. It's also about creation, sort of. And then the second paragraph from here, the cause and the caused, which goes on all the way till here on page 39, is kind of about human beings. And though some of it sounds complicated, it's basically telling us that people are partly formed by their environments, but they also have capacities that can be trained. I might have the capacity to be the greatest rock guitarist in history, but I never had the lessons to bring out that potential. Much depends on our training. Now, the most important thing here is this term that you will see, the active intellect. Now, don't worry too much about talk of material and passive intellects. What you need to know is that this active intellect, for the moment, can be thought of as a kind of data bank. Imagine that out there in the cloud, there is a data bank containing all the truths about the universe. Now, when the philosopher talks about the most longed-for goal of the perfect man, okay, you'll see here the degree is the most longed-for goal of the perfect man, he's basically talking about sort of becoming one with the active intellect, saying that our goal in life is to kind of know all those truths contained out there in the cloud. That's a very important part of this philosophical creed or philosophical religion. Anyway, read this through. Okay, so if you read through from the beginning, especially concentrating on the philosopher's speech beginning here at 36, ending here, end of section 1, and try to answer the questions and do the exercises that are coming up. If you need any further help, you can read the relevant section of my book, which you're going to be directed to read anyway before the end of the module. So just try and read it, see what you can come out with. Don't worry if you don't understand every word or every reference. The main thing is to try and at least answer the basic questions about what this philosopher is saying about God and religion.